Much love and always to you guys. So, a question that I get a lot and I see a lot as a basketball trainer and coach, and also a basketball player in general as well, is how do you become better as a basketball player? How do you get better as a basketball player? And this can be from, youth development standpoint, or even all the way up to high school, college, professional level. How do you become better at your craft? So the way that I would answer this question is, one, you have to really decide that you actually want to get better. You have to decide that getting better at basketball is something that you genuinely want to do. In your heart, you have the passion, the desire to get better. And so once you have that desire and that passion to get better, then comes the question of, so how do you actually get better? And to me, it comes down to, for one, practicing the fundamentals, being consistent and mastering the fundamentals. The fundamentals being dribbling, passing, shooting, and footwork. To me, those are the fundamentals. Those are the core of the fundamentals. You can add in stuff like player IQ and all this different stuff, but to me, just the actual physical aspect of playing basketball, footwork, the passing, the shooting, and the dribbling, the ball handling, to me, those are like the four cornerstones of developing a good, solid basketball game. So in order to get better at those, it's just literally, it may be like the most boring part about developing your skill set, but the most skilled pros like Kobe, Michael Jordan, they mastered the fundamentals. They spent so many countless hours mastering the fundamentals. How to, just simply pump faking, one dribble, pull up. Pump faking, one dribble, crossover, pull up. Pump faking, rip through, one dribble, layup. Just basic stuff like that. It may seem simple and monotonous because you're not doing all this flashy stuff, but we don't need all the flashy stuff, really. The flashy stuff comes later once you actually have mastered the fundamentals, because the fundamentals are the foundation for your actual game itself. And then once you've established that foundation, once you become, a good enough shooter to where you can make shots consistently, open shots and contested shots, once you can handle the ball with both your right and your left hand, you got the basic crossover between the legs, spin move behind the back, that stuff. You got that down, and you got the footwork to go along with it. Now you can add in, crossover, one dribble pull up, double cross, one dribble pull up, simple stuff like that. But repping it so much and so often that you know it like the back of your hand, that it's just such a natural movement to you, to where if you see an opportunity to do it in the game, you don't hesitate to do it. You just do it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about doing, I'm gonna twitch here and I'm gonna hit him with the between the legs, crossover, spin move, step back into a hezzy, into you don't even have to think about all that, because once you have the basic fundamentals down, you got the simple, most basic moves down. Now it's just about spotting the opportunities and not even thinking about it, just reacting instantly. That's what repping it does, and that's what repping it against live competition does as well. Helps you get to that state to where you're not even thinking about your next move. You're just reacting to what you see. And the classic saying is read and react. It's just that. Once you got the fundamentals down, once you got your foundation set, then that's when you start to become your own player. That's when you start to really see what kind of a player you are based on the reads that you make. Every player is different. Every player has a different play style. I won't say every player has a different play style, but there are so many different play styles out there. There's so many different combinations of play styles that it's almost as if everyone does have their own unique play style. And so the more that you master the fundamentals, the more that you play, the more you're able to start to experiment with your game. The more you're able to start experimenting with different move sets. Maybe one day you practice all just 1-2 dribble pull-ups. Maybe the next day you practice between the legs, crossovers into your pull-up, or the next day you practice just only finishing at the rim. Next day you practice only shooting threes, only mid-range, only layups, only free throws. Like, practice and experiment with these different type of things so that you can really feel what feels good for you. You can tell what feels good for you, and then the more that you practice, the more you're able to see why it feels good for you. Maybe it's because you got the body type to go along with, a more slashing play style. Maybe you have natural bounce so that you're able to capitalize on getting to the rim and finishing over people, dunking on people, being an acrobatic finisher up and under, all over the paint. Maybe you're a shorter point guard style player to where you have to be crafty, especially with your footwork. You have to be crafty with the ball, your lookaways, your ball fakes, all that different stuff. You have to be a pinpoint, precise passer. So you're practicing more of that skill set. So it's not just what kind of player that you want to be, it's also what physical attributes do you have? What physical attributes do you have that sets you apart from the next player? If you do have those attributes. If you don't, then what do you have that you can really work on and capitalize on so you can become the best at what you do? So that's why shorter players like JJ Barea, like Spud Webb, like Nate Robinson, like they've all made great careers being, very well under 6 foot. Short, very, very short for the NBA standards. But they all had very good careers because they saw and they noticed and they observed and they learned what skill set matches their body type best, what they like to do, what they can do best on the NBA court. Are they, JJ Barea, he was a very good shooter. He was only, 5'10", 5'11", maybe on a good day, but definitely under 6 foot. But the championship with the Mavericks, and he had, I don't know how many years he played, but he played for a very long time in the NBA, being undersized, all because he had all the fundamentals down, and he saw how he could fit in with the system of the Mavericks at the time. And then also what he can do, what he can bring to the table with his body size, with his stature and everything, with his body type and his skill set. So he knew that he had to become a good shooter. He had to become a great shooter, in fact, in order to be on the court. He had to be a great passer, a great floor general. He had to have superior footwork in order to position himself to be in positions for success. So he learned and understood all of that. So I would say that his game was more focused on positioning, shooting, passing, and again, just basic fundamental stuff, right? So moving on to, like, say, Spud Webb, for example, he was only, 5'9", but he was stupid athletic. He was dumb athletic. Slam dunk contest champion, 3 times, something like that. So the only way you can do that being under 6 foot is you have to have superior athleticism, and he did. And so for him, his game, what I noticed by watching him was that, he had to focus more on footwork in order to position himself to be in, places for success, in order to blow by his defender, in order to utilize, his shot fake to get defenders off their feet, in order to drive by him, stuff like that. Because he wasn't a great shooter. He wasn't really, I'd say, he was maybe a decent shooter at best in the NBA by NBA standards. But being that he wanted to get to the rim, he was a slashing point guard. He was extremely quick and extremely bouncy. And he had pretty good court vision too, because he's only 5'9", going up against 7-footers, 6'10", 6'11" players in the paint. Plus, literally almost everyone, if not everyone else on the court, is taller than him. So he had to understand his positioning relative to his players' positionings and also player tendencies. So in mastering the fundamentals, footwork, ball handling, the passing, I'd say those were his strong suits. And then add on to that player IQ and understanding his teammates in general, teammate chemistry. That's what allowed him to have a very good, solid professional career in the NBA. Because one, he was super athletic, but he didn't rely only on his athleticism to score and to get people involved. He was a pure point guard, but he was a very athletic pure point guard because he had almost no other option but to be a pure point guard at his height. And so, being that he understood his body size, his mechanics and everything, his play style and his body style, he maximized it. So essentially what I'm telling everyone today is that you have to learn your body style, what your body style is, and as you master the fundamentals, learn what your play style is and how it complements or how your body style complements your play style. You have to learn it. What I'm saying is basically you have to learn yourself. You have to learn what kind of player you are by learning your own tendencies, your own likes, your dislikes, what you don't want to work on, what you do want to work on. And then understanding all that, you understand yourself better. Now you can understand how to utilize your skills that you do have on the court more effectively. Like I was just having this conversation today, like understanding what you do best on the court and why you do it best on the court will allow you to capitalize on your skill set even more. So now you may not be, the tallest player in the gym, may not be the most athletic, but you can still be the most effective, if not one of the most effective players in the gym, simply because you understand yourself and your game that much more than other players understand themselves and their own game. So the more that you understand yourself, the more that you work on yourself as a player and off the court as a human being in general as well. But because it's all connected. But talking mostly basketball right now, the more that you understand yourself, the more that you understand your game, the more you're putting yourself in position for success, because you're able to capitalize on what you know within yourself more than what other players may know within themselves. So really, it's not a battle against who's more skilled. It's about who is able to utilize their skills best, who is able to be the most effective with their skills. So that's really what it's about. That's how you become a better basketball player. You can have all the fancy drills and everything you want, but one thing I forgot to say earlier is that if you're not practicing with intention, then you're basically practicing to fail, because you have to be intentional with every single thing that you do, basketball related and off the court. Especially on the court though, if you're practicing with good intentions, if you're practicing with the intention to become better, if you have an idea of what it looks like to actually be better in the skills that you're working to develop, then being able to see it within your mind and you're holding that intention of being, reaching that level, that'll help you reach that level even better, even faster, more smoothly, because you understand what it is that you're going for. You understand your goal, you understand what it looks like, and you understand how to get there. Now it's just a matter of putting in the work and staying focused. So that's why being intentional is so important. That's what made Kobe so great, because as much as he worked, you could take someone with, the same work ethic, but a different state of mind, and you have completely different results. So Kobe, he was, the ultimate competitor, the ultimate with a work ethic, and he was ultimate with being intentional with his work. But you can also take someone who works out 3-4 times a day, but they're not intentional with what they're doing. Okay, so you're doing all that stuff, you're working on, these different skills and everything, but if you're not actually intentional with what you're doing, then how are you going to actually apply what you're doing to yourself? How are you going to actually utilize what you're doing in games? You may be able to do it decently well, but you're never going to reach that full potential without being intentional. So you have to have your intentions set and locked down so that you can get the most out of every single thing that you're doing when you're practicing, when you're working on skill work. Because if you're not intentional out there, you're not going to get the best. You're not going to get all the lessons that you can get from the skills that you're working on, from the work that you're doing. So being intentional is kind of like the missing key that most people don't really have. Everyone may have, I'm not even gonna say everyone, but a lot of players may have the passion and the desire to get better, but how many of them are intentional with every single thing that they do? That is what separates, the high level pros and even just pros in general from just, the average and even just, amateur players. The work ethic and the intentionality with the work ethic. Because when you're intentional, you don't even have to think about having, a good work ethic. You don't even think about having to be, going intensely for every single rep. Because when you're intentional about what you're doing, the intensity is already built in. It's already there. You don't even have to think about it. You don't have to question it for yourself. It's already there because your intention doesn't allow for anything less. Your intention is one of the key things that creates your reality. And so this is why it's so important to operate, especially as a basketball player, with good and pure intentions. So I didn't go over any, like actual workout tips or anything like that. I mean, technically I did, but this is more, the mental side of the game, the more emotional side of the game, the more spiritual side of the game, rather than the physical. Because if you understand how to have the correct mindset, I don't even want to say correct, because there's multiple different correct mindsets to get better. But if you have a correct mindset, if you have a good mindset that allows you to get better continuously, having discipline, having the diligence to stay true to what you're doing day in and day out with intention, with good intentions, that's how you become a better basketball player. Not just a better basketball player, but the best player that you can be. Because I was, talking about before, there is no, not in this video, but on my other channel, Devoid of Thought, I was talking about how there technically is no highest self, or your best self, the best version of yourself. That technically doesn't exist, because the higher that you climb, the more that you realize there's a whole lot more to go. There's a whole lot more to learn. And so as a basketball player, you may have, this vision of yourself being at the best of your game, the peak of your game. But really, once you get to that level of play, once you get to that level of skill, you start to realize, like, the more that you climb, the more that there is to learn and discover about the game of basketball, about yourself in the game of basketball. So this is how LeBron keeps getting better year after year after year, even though, I assume that he's close to retirement right now as I'm recording this, but with how he's playing and how well he's taking care of his body, I don't even think he knows when his retirement is going to be. But that's a prime example of how you keep getting better despite getting older and older, because he's staying intentional with his workouts. He still has the hunger, the desire, the passion to keep getting better. So he may not have, the athleticism that he did when he was, 24, 25, even 30, but he has the mind that grew even stronger over time. And so that's how he keeps getting better. He's able to see more things in the game, see more different aspects of the game to capitalize, to exploit, and also see more areas in his game that he can improve upon that he hasn't been able to do years past and earlier in his career. So there's always ways to get better, as long as you have the mindset, the mentality to be focused on getting better, to have the desire to get better. And as you're working, as you're doing, the physical work, skill work, training and everything, have the intention in every single work that you do to keep getting better. So that's how you get better as a basketball player. That's how you become the best player that you can be, while also continually unlocking more and more of yourself. So I'm gonna end it off there. I send this video out with much love, much respect, wholeness, and gratitude to you. Much love. Razia.